I should have called the cops the first time I saw them in my backyard, honestly. That's what my brother said when I told him about it later. But at the time, it didn't even register as something serious. It just felt weird, like one of those moments where your brain refuses to catch up with what your eyes are seeing. I came home from work early that Friday, maybe around 4:30, sun still out, still hot enough in Scottsdale that the concrete around the pool looked like it was glowing. And I remember hearing music before I even opened the side gate. Not loud party music either, just that lazy summer kind of playlist people put on when they're trying to pretend life is effortless. Then I walked around the corner, and there they were. 3 women in my pool. One guy floating on one of those inflatable chairs. Beer cans on my patio table. Towels hanging over my fence like they'd been there all afternoon. And the craziest part, nobody even looked surprised to see me. This blonde woman sitting on the edge of the pool glanced over her shoulder at me like I was the one interrupting something. She actually smiled. "Oh my God. Hey," she said, real casual, like we'd met before somewhere. We thought nobody was home. I just stood there holding my laptop bag, trying to figure out if I'd somehow walked into the wrong backyard. "This is my house," I said. Real slow, real confused. The guy in the float laughed like I'd made a joke. "Relax, man," he said. "Alyssa knows the HOA people." To this day, I still don't fully understand what that was supposed to mean. Like somehow knowing HOA people unlocked private property rights. The blonde woman, Alyssa apparently, stood up and wrapped a towel around herself without even apologizing. "We're leaving," she said, but there was attitude in it, like I was uptight for caring. They gathered their stuff, still laughing, still talking, and before she walked out the gate, she turned back toward me and said, "You should really lock this thing." Then she winked. Actually winked. I remember standing there after they left, just staring at the water moving around in the pool, trying to process how insane the whole interaction had been. Now, for context, I'd only moved into that neighborhood about 8 months earlier. After my divorce, I needed somewhere quieter, somewhere that didn't feel full of ghosts, and this little cul-de-sac in North Scottsdale seemed perfect. Mostly older couples, retired people, everybody obsessed with lawn maintenance and mailbox colors. Typical HOA suburbia. I kept to myself. Worked remote. Grilled on weekends. Try not to think too much about how different my life looked at 42 than I imagined it would at 25. And then there was Alyssa Mercer. Mid-30s maybe, always dressed like she was walking into a real estate commercial, giant sunglasses, white SUV, one of those people who somehow manages to sound friendly and condescending at the same time. I found out later she was on the HOA board, which explained a lot. People in the neighborhood acted weird around her, not scared exactly, more like exhausted. Like they'd all learned it was easier to nod than argue. A few days after the pool incident, I was taking my trash bins back up the driveway when my next-door neighbor, Walter, kind of shuffled over holding his coffee mug. Walter was in his 70s, Vietnam vet, permanent squint on his face like the Arizona sun personally offended him. He asked me if I'd met the queen of the cul-de-sac yet. I laughed and said, "You mean Alyssa?" He just nodded slowly. "Don't let that woman walk over you," he said. "She thinks this whole neighborhood belongs to her." Then he told me something that made my stomach tighten a little. Apparently, I wasn't the first person she'd pulled this kind of thing with. A younger couple 2 streets over had complained about random people using their hot tub during a block party. Someone else caught teenagers cutting through their backyard after Alyssa told them nobody would mind. Walter leaned closer and lowered his voice like we were discussing organized crime. "She likes testing people," he said. "Especially folks she thinks won't push back." I wish I could tell you I immediately stood my ground after that, but honestly, I didn't. I wanted peace. After the divorce, peace felt more valuable than pride. So when I saw Alyssa again that weekend walking her dog past my house, I tried to keep it civil. I stepped outside and said, "Hey, listen about the pool thing. I'd appreciate it if that didn't happen again." She stopped at the sidewalk and tilted her head at me like she was amused. "Are you still upset about that?" she asked. Still smiling. That same smile. The kind that makes your skin crawl because there's no warmth in it at all. "It's private property," I said. "You can't just invite people over here." And then she hit me with the sentence that changed everything. "Can you prove we were ever there?" she said softly, almost playful. Then she gave me that little shrug, turned around, and kept walking her dog like she hadn't just lit a fuse in my brain. And standing there in my driveway, watching her disappear down the street, I realized something that honestly bothered me more than the trespassing itself. She really believed nobody would ever challenge her. For the next couple weeks, I tried convincing myself to let it go. That's the embarrassing part about these situations nobody talks about. People always imagine they'd react immediately, slam doors, threaten lawsuits, go full action movie mode. But real life doesn't work like that. Most of the time you just sit there replaying conversations in your head while washing dishes or trying to fall asleep at 2 in the morning, wondering if maybe you're overreacting. And honestly, part of me thought maybe Walter had gotten into my head too much. Maybe Alyssa was just one of those overly entitled neighborhood personalities, and the pool thing had been a one-time stunt. Then Saturday happened. I was at my brother Nate's place helping him put together a pergola in his backyard when my phone buzzed. Motion alert. Backyard camera. I almost ignored it because coyotes set those things off all the time, but something made me open the app anyway. And there she was, Alyssa, walking through my side gate wearing sunglasses and carrying one of those oversized straw beach bags like she was checking into a resort. 2 other women behind her. Then another guy carrying a cooler. I remember just staring at my phone while Nate kept talking about drill bits or wood stain or whatever, completely unaware my blood pressure had just launched into orbit. "You good?" he asked finally. I handed him the phone. He watched for maybe 10 seconds before saying, "Nope, absolutely not. We're going." The drive back felt longer than it actually was. Every red light irritated me. Every slow driver became a personal enemy. And the whole time I kept thinking about that smug little sentence. Can you prove we were ever there? By the time we pulled into my driveway, music was echoing over the fence. Nate looked at me and said, "You sure you want to stay calm?" Which, fair question. Because Nate's solution to most problems involves volume and profanity. But I didn't want a screaming match. I didn't want cops showing up to some chaotic neighborhood spectacle where suddenly I'm the unstable divorced guy yelling at women in swimsuits. People see what they want to see. So we walked through the gate quietly. Alyssa was in the water holding a drink when she noticed me. And I swear to God, she rolled her eyes. Like I was inconveniencing her. "Seriously?" she said. "Again with this?" Nate stepped forward immediately. "You out of your damn mind?" he snapped. "This is private property." Alyssa climbed out of the pool slowly, totally unfazed, and pointed at me instead of him. "Your brother needs to relax." Then she looked right at me and smiled again. Always the smile. "You really should socialize more, Evan. People in this neighborhood like to have fun." I don't know why that sentence got under my skin so badly. Maybe because she said it like she knew me. Like she'd already decided who I was. Lonely, bitter, isolated. Maybe because part of me worried she wasn't entirely wrong. Divorce has a way of making you disappear from your own life for a while. Your friends stop calling as much. Couples stop inviting you places. People look at you like broken furniture they don't know where to put. But there's a difference between loneliness and surrender. And standing there watching strangers drip pool water onto my patio furniture while this woman treated my home like community property, something shifted in me. "Get out," I said calmly. Not loud, not emotional, just flat. Alyssa studied my face for a second, maybe realizing for the first time I wasn't embarrassed anymore. Then she shrugged and motioned for everyone to grab their stuff. As they were leaving, one of the women muttered, "This guy's psycho," which was incredible considering they were literally trespassing. But Alyssa stopped at the gate and turned back one last time. "You know what your problem is?" she said. "You think owning something makes it yours." Even Nate looked confused by that sentence. "That doesn't even make sense," he said after they left. But weirdly enough, I understood what she meant. In her mind, the neighborhood belonged to people like her. The social people, the loud people, the connected people. Guys like me were temporary, replaceable, background characters. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat outside by the pool with a whiskey glass sweating in my hand while the water lights rippled across the patio, and I kept replaying every interaction. The entitlement, the performance, the way she weaponized confidence because most people are too tired to fight it. Around midnight, Walter appeared on the other side of the fence holding a flashlight. "Heard the music earlier," he said. "She back." I nodded. He leaned against the fence and sighed. "Woman's gonna mess with the wrong person one day." Then he looked at me carefully. "Question is, are you the wrong person?" That line stayed with me. Because up until then, I'd been reacting, defending, asking politely, trying to be reasonable with someone who viewed reason as weakness. And once you realize somebody mistakes kindness for permission, the entire game changes. The next morning I started planning. Not revenge exactly. At least that's what I told myself. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just wanted certainty. Proof. Consequences. So I upgraded every camera around the house. Front yard, backyard, side gate, patio angle, overhead view from the garage. Motion alerts with timestamps uploaded automatically to cloud storage. I even added audio recording where it was legally allowed. If Alyssa wanted to pretend nothing happened, fine. Not anymore. But the real idea came from my friend Marcus. Marcus owned a pool maintenance company and knew more useless pool chemistry facts than any human being should. I told him the whole story over beers one night, expecting him to laugh it off. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You know they make event dye systems, right?" I blinked at him. "What's that?" And Marcus smiled the slowest, most dangerous smile I'd seen in years. "Country clubs use them sometimes for private parties," he said. "Completely harmless. Invisible in water. Reacts when it dries on skin or fabric." I started laughing immediately because it sounded fake. Like cartoon villain stuff. "No way that's real." "Oh, it's real," he said. "And it takes about 2 days to fade." Now, this is the point where half the internet's probably going to decide I'm the villain. Maybe fair. Maybe not. But understand something. This woman had spent months walking through life convinced rules only applied to other people. No accountability. No consequences. Just smiles and manipulation and social pressure. And honestly, part of me wanted to see what happened when somebody finally handed her a mirror. So the following Friday, I unlocked the side gate on purpose. Clean patio. Fresh towels folded neatly. Pool lights glowing blue. Everything looking perfectly normal. Then I sat in my living room with my phone in one hand and the camera feeds open on my TV, waiting. And right around 2:17 p.m., Alyssa walked through my gate like she owned the place. The crazy thing is, she didn't even hesitate. No looking around. No caution. No, maybe this is a bad idea. She walked straight into my backyard with that same confidence like the universe had already approved whatever decision she made. 2 women followed behind her carrying drinks from Starbucks. Another guy dragged in a speaker, and within 5 minutes my backyard looked like the unofficial neighborhood pool party again. I watched the whole thing from inside the house like some nature documentary narrator observing animals that had no idea the trap was already closed. Nate was on speakerphone the whole time because he refused to miss what he called the downfall of Queen HOA. "Dude," he whispered dramatically through the phone, "this is the best thing you've ever done." I should probably mention something here that matters more than people realize. I wasn't smiling. I know everybody expects some revenge movie moment where the hero enjoys the setup, but honestly, sitting there watching them laugh in my pool mostly made me tired. Because at some point you realize conflict changes you even when you win. A year earlier, I would have never considered doing something like this. A year earlier, I was married, coaching Little League twice a week, trying to decide between patio furniture sets like that was a meaningful life decision. Now I was sitting in a dark living room waiting for chemically activated dye to publicly humiliate a woman from my HOA. Life gets weird fast. Around 3 o'clock, they finally climbed out of the pool. And for maybe 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then one of the women looked down at her feet and froze. Bright blue footprints stretched across the concrete behind her. Another girl grabbed her arm. "Oh my God, Kayla, your hands." The dye had already started reacting. Smears of electric blue spread across their palms, their towels, the white patio chairs, even the hem of Alyssa's oversized beach cover-up. Then chaos hit all at once. What the hell is this? Why is it getting darker? Is this paint? One guy started scrubbing his legs with pool water, which only made it worse. And Alyssa, for the first time since I'd met her, looked genuinely rattled. Not annoyed. Not smug. Scared. She grabbed a towel and started wiping at her arms aggressively, breathing faster every second as the blue stains spread across the fabric. That's when I stepped outside. Calm. Quiet. Phone in my hand. Everybody turned toward me immediately, and the silence after all that panic honestly felt heavier than yelling. Alyssa stared at me like she was finally seeing me clearly for the first time. "What did you do?" she demanded. I shrugged. "Nothing dangerous," I said. "It fades in about 48 hours. 48, she snapped, looking down at her hands again. "Are you insane?" Nate later told me this was his favorite part because apparently I looked serial killer calm. Which, probably not the energy I should aspire to, but after weeks of her treating me like some harmless background extra, I'd be lying if I said that moment didn't feel satisfying. Alyssa stepped toward me, furious now. You can't do this to people. And that right there, that sentence almost made me laugh. Because suddenly boundaries mattered. Suddenly someone crossing a line was unacceptable. I lifted my phone slightly. Actually, I said, I can prove exactly what I did. Then I turned the screen toward her. For camera angles, timestamps, clear footage of every person entering through the gate, using the pool, drinking on the property, laughing, trespassing. You could literally see Alyssa waving at one of the cameras at one point without realizing it was recording. Her face changed instantly. It wasn't anger anymore. It was calculation. She finally understood this wasn't a neighborhood misunderstanding she could charm her way out of. This was evidence. Real evidence. One of her friends looked at her and whispered, "You told us this was okay." Nobody moved for a second. You could hear the pool filter humming in the background. Then Alyssa tried one last thing. "If you post any of this online," she said carefully, "I'll sue you." But the confidence was cracking now. I took a breath and said something I'd been needing to say for weeks. "Alyssa, you walked into another person's property 3 separate times and told yourself it was fine because nobody stopped you." I looked around at the others too. That's not confidence. That's entitlement. Nobody had a comeback for that. They just gathered their things quietly, blue stains smeared across towels and sandals and skin, and walked out the gate without another word. But the story didn't end there. Not even close. 3 days later, I got a call from someone on the HOA board asking if I'd be willing to attend a private meeting. Apparently, Alyssa hadn't exactly been popular behind the scenes either. There had already been complaints, abuse of authority, selective fines, letting her friends break rules other residents got punished for. My footage became the thing nobody could ignore anymore. Within 2 weeks, she was removed from the board. And somehow, honestly, I still don't know who leaked them. Screenshots from the security footage started circulating around local neighborhood Facebook groups. Nothing explicit. Just images of blue footprints leading across expensive patio stone while Alyssa looked horrified in the background. The internet did what the internet always does. Memes, jokes, arguments. Half the comments called me a genius. The other half said I'd gone way too far. And maybe they're right. Maybe there was a better way to handle all of it. But here's the part one keep coming back to. Nobody cared when she crossed the line. They only cared when somebody finally pushed back hard enough to embarrass her. That's the thing about people like Alyssa. They survive because communities get tired. Tired of confrontation. Tired of drama. Tired of being the difficult person in the room. So the loudest personalities slowly take over because everybody else just wants peace. And honestly, I think that's why this whole thing blew up online the way it did. It was never really about a pool. It was about the moment somebody decided enough was enough. I still live in the same house, by the way. Walter still complains about my lawn edging every Tuesday morning like it's a federal issue. Nate still tells this story at family barbecues like I orchestrated Ocean's 11 in swim trunks. And every once in a while, somebody new in the neighborhood recognizes me and asks, "Wait, are you the pool dye guy?" Which is not exactly the legacy I imagined for myself, but I've heard worse. The gate stays locked now. Camera's still up. Haven't seen Alyssa in almost a year. Last rumor I heard, she moved to Nevada. But sometimes late at night when the backyard's quiet and the pool lights are reflecting across the water, I still think about that sentence she said to me the first time. "Can you prove we were ever here?" Turns out, yeah, I could. But here's the real question. If somebody keeps crossing lines because they think nobody will stop them, how far are you supposed to let it go before pushing back? And when does defending your peace start turning you into someone you barely recognize anymore? Let me know what you think in the comments. Was I justified, or did I become just as bad as she was?